I'm a very stubborn person. A very stubborn person. My husband has to grab me and just kind of be like, listen to people when they're telling you something. But like some of the things you had said, I was like, I'm fine. I got this. Like, I know what I'm doing is gonna work. And my dad always said, if you're gonna walk through a minefield, follow someone. He's right.
Very good.
Yeah. So if
if
you want to know business, follow someone who does business. If you want to know the aesthetics industry, follow someone who does aesthetics. Walk behind someone who has already stepped on all the bombs, so you know where not to step. And so my main thing was to where I am now. So the way I'm running my business now is I'm working on the business rather than in the business as much, because that was something you told me. And it took me so long. It's not that I didn't want to do that, obviously. It took me a long time to figure out what that really meant.
Fellow wealth warriors, I want you to meet someone. I want you to meet Kylie Klotz. She's a relatively new business owner, only been in business 2 to 3 years here, and she is just an amazing young lady, and she has done a lot of things that most people don't get to in their first couple of years in business. And I want you to hear what she has to say. I had the honor of actually helping her just a little bit in her business and mentoring some of those things. And I just want you to see this interview because there's a lot of really good stuff she has to put out there. If you're a new entrepreneur, this is going to mean a lot to you. Kylie, thank you for being with us today. I know you are a busy girl.
Yes.
So tell me, I want to go back in time. I always do this with my my guests. I want to know what birthed your idea. First of all, tell us a little bit about your business. Start there. And then if you would, go back in time and tell me what birthed that idea.
So I own an aesthetic studio in Owasso. It's called Periwinkle Esthetics. We do lashes, waxing, facials, body treatments, anything to do with beauty, all that stuff. We lash lifts, brow laminations, all the things that you can possibly think of that could go into that. The reason I wanted to open a business, I've wanted to open a business for years. It was like, since I was little, I grew up with my parents running a traditional business. So I was always more leaning towards that. I didn't really like working for someone. But I was really good at working for people. So it was a hard decision at first, but I wanted to open it because I felt like there wasn't a lot of places that really helped people understand that beauty came more than just topically, it came from within. I was either wanting to go into health or beauty, and I kind of tied both of them together because beauty all has to do with your gut anyways, and internally how you see yourself is really how you're going to be affected on the outside. So that's why I wanted to open Periwinkle, and I just ran with that and opened it.
So this was how long ago?
I opened it in the middle of 2020, in the middle of the lockdown.
That's what I was wanting to get around to.
Yes.
So everybody's locked down, and you'd start a business.
Yes. It seems crazy,
Seems
but
a
it
little
was
counterintuitive,
it was
doesn't it?
exactly what I needed and what I wanted. I had been praying about it for years. I wanted it for years, and it just kind of, the door opened crazy at the same time as we were looking for houses. And the same day that we looked at the house we're in now is the same day that we looked at that location for a business. And so I walked in and I knew immediately that that was the time. It felt crazy because it's in the middle of a lockdown. You don't know like financially what's going on, but I mean it's all been great.
Well, cool. Let's go back to when you opened up, and obviously you kind of knew. You didn't necessarily get any heads up about the whole pandemic. And you opened up in what month again in 2020?
We started looking. We opened, like officially took clients in September, late August, early September.
So it had been going on since March. So it's pretty much, So you definitely knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Knew what was going on at that point. It was a very last minute decision to kind of open my own. I didn't plan on doing it immediately. Because again, I wanted to for years. I didn't think it was going to happen yet. I thought that was like years down the road. But whenever the world shut down, where I had worked previously, told me that we had 24 hours to decide whether or not we were going to stay there or not. And I, within 24 hours, made a pros and cons list and decided that that was my time to step away. So I did that decision in 24 hours and then found a business a few months after.
Good. So pros and cons list. Dig into that for me a little bit. What prompted you to just go right to a pros and cons list? Because that's actually very, young business owners don't know that. They don't really think about that first. So who did? Was this an outside influence maybe that gave you this idea?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about that.
My husband and my parents, both of them.
Okay.
My husband, Joel, kept telling me, you need to make a pros and cons list. I was like, well, no, I'll be fine. I'll just stay with where I'm at. And he was like, Kylie, it's better. You have to see all of it out, like down on paper, because out loud he kept asking me and I kept telling him what my pros were, what my cons were. But I was like, here's one pro and here's 20 million cons. And he's like, if you write them down, you'll understand it better. So I wrote it all down. I called my parents and they were like, you need to make a pros and cons list. I was like, well, I already did. And had the list, and my pros actually way outweighed my cons once I started writing it down.
Fantastic. Because when you've got the thoughts just floating around, all that negativity kind of seeps
scared,
in, doesn't it?
yeah.
You get scared.
Yes.
Emotions get involved. It's like,
I have 24 hours to make a huge decision.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. That can be unnerving, to say the least. And I think there's a lot of business owners that did and may have failed. And now, so some of the people that you might have seen or did you see any businesses that started in that same year that maybe have failed? Did you notice any?
I mean, I feel like a lot of people decided to start online businesses during that. I saw a lot of those fail. I don't know many people who in the middle of the pandemic opened up like traditional places.
Right.
So, I mean, I honestly don't know about on that end, but a lot of online things, yes, that did. But.
I've interviewed so many business owners that were affected by it, but very few that started that year. So it's very important that people will see, I think, the strength and ability that you have and the tenacity that you have for staying power. So tell me a little bit about what was the number one struggle during that time frame. Obviously people, because people have to come in.
Yes.
You have to be face to face, literally, with
literally
these people.
inches from their faces.
Yeah. So how did you guys actually adjust? What were your changes you made?
That was crazy. So originally, when I first started, I was only taking like 2 clients a day, and I had a humidifier with a disinfectant, like a safe disinfectant, running throughout the room the whole time, like because we didn't know anything. And I had been doing that. I had taken a few clients kind of like on my own for a few months doing that, and people were already comfortable with it. Honestly, by the time September rolled around, more people were wanting to get out. People love their lash extensions. They were like, I need lashes. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're sick. I'm like, no, we're not going to be sick and come in. But yeah, lashes were easier to get in because people love kind of waking up and just having that done. Facials was a lot harder. Financially, a lot of people took a big hit, and you don't realize the benefits of facials unless you're educated on them. And people think it's just like a little fluff facial here or there, and they don't realize that they need it. So it was way harder to get facial clients in for that. But honestly, we did a lot of like on social media, on Instagram, actually, we did a lot of videos like showing this is how we're cleaning between people. This is what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. We're safe. We're clean. Everything here is sanitary. You don't have to worry about it. We guaranteed people, like we told them if they're sick to let us know because we don't want to risk getting anyone sick. So we're going to let you know if we're sick. We were just very open with our clients. And that helped a lot get people feel more comfortable coming to us because honestly, you don't know when you walk into a place, were they wiping down the handles? Have they disinfected the place? You don't know. In the middle of a pandemic, you want to know all those things.
Sure.
And so we just showed people that we were doing all those things.
Good.
So
very good. So a lot of people, when they have the first year in business, they can look back year after year and see how their milestones have been hit or missed in some cases. But as we go and we see year after year, since you started in the pandemic, I'm assuming that was probably one of the lowest years. And you're trying to get traction in a brand new business. And you've got the world against you here, literally.
Yes.
And now in the progression from 20 to 21 to 22, and now here we are in 23.
That's so crazy.
So tell me a little bit about the progression and how things have grown.
My husband's the numbers guy, so he has all the numbers written down. He's way better at that.
Yes.
But I was honestly looking at the numbers just the other day. It's incredible to watch how it's grown, but within the aesthetics world, I know all business goes in waves. I grew up knowing that, thankfully, because otherwise it would have scared me and I would have been like, it's low, I gotta leave, like get out of here. But I know all business goes in waves. So I'm easy on myself when it comes to watching the numbers because there's seasons in the aesthetics world where it's like during the summer, it's not as busy because everyone's home with their kids. So moms can't come in and get services done. Whenever their kids are in school, they can come in and get services done. So, but it has grown amazing. Like I'm so thankful for how it's grown. But at first it was terrifying. Yeah. Like it was like, is this going to grow? Is this going to be successful? I just opened in the middle of a pandemic. I put all this money in and we bought a house at the same time. And we were only basing things off of my husband's income so that if I didn't make any money, we would be fine with everything.
That's good.
But yes, back to the numbers. They have grown. I don't know the exact numbers. My husband's way better with
He's
that.
the implementer. You're the visionary, right?
Yes. I'm like, let's do this. And he was like, let's have a plan. And I'm like, let's just do it anyways. I'm like, no plan.
No parachute.
Yes, that's fine. Just jump. And he's like, no, we need a safety, which I'm thankful for.
I promise
I
can
know.
fly.
I wish. That'd be so cool.
I know, right?
That'd be so cool.
So the big thing here, I guess, is trying to figure out, if you were going to give some piece of advice, obviously don't open in a pandemic, but at the end of the day, starting outside the pandemic, what are some of the biggest things that kind of surprised you in business that maybe you didn't see coming? Is there anything like that?
There's a lot. It's way more expensive than you think it is. I knew, again, growing up with my parents having a traditional business, I knew a lot of the hurdles that I would have to overcome, thankfully, because I watched them do it. So I knew business went in waves, so it wasn't as scary. I knew it was going to be really expensive. I can't tell you how many times my parents tried to convince me to do something on my own, like not hire someone for something in the beginning. Like whenever we were remodeling the whole studio, because it was an Arvest bank before. Yeah. And so it was like bland colors, very neutral. And I like went in and changed this whole thing to this girly periwinkle colored place. And I was like the one tearing out carpet. Like my whole family came in and helped me, but they were like, you need to do this on your own because it's expensive. And then I was like, no, it's not. It's fine. I'll just hire someone for this or hire someone for that. And I did. And then looking back, I was like, that was a mistake. I could have done that on my own. Yeah. So it's way more expensive than you think it is. And there's just a lot of hurdles all the time. Like going from originally we started out booth rent and then I started having employees. Yeah. And that was very different. Yes. All the hurdles that were going to come with that. At one point I reached out to my previous boss and I asked her if I said, is this a reap what you sow kind of thing? Was I a pain in your butt? And she just laughed and she was like, no, you weren't. And she's like, employees are just hard. And that was when I first started with employees. I have great employees now. I love my team. But it's just like you don't know when someone's going to leave and then all of their clients will follow them and then you have to start over again. Yeah. There's so many times where you have to start over and you think once you get started it's just going to keep getting better and better. But there's so many times where you just have to dig your heels in and just keep going when it sucks. Yeah,
and that's one of the things I think I was probably going to guess you were going to say because so many employers have issues with finding the right people, retaining the right people, and then getting rid of the people that aren't part of your culture or negatively affecting your culture. And you've had that happen before because we've talked about it before. Yes. So a lot of those things are learning experiences and what to look for. Would you say that you are a little better of a judge of character now? Than you did because almost like when you start, it's like, I'll take a warm body, just get in here.
I don't care who you are. I just want you to do the service.
I'll train you
as long as you do it right.
Right.
And even then I was like very lenient. I was like, you can do it wrong, I'll fix it. Like I just wanted people in there that wanted to work. And if I saw that they were willing to work at all, I was like ready to hire them. But then, I saw it come back and kind of shoot myself in the foot of like, well, that wasn't a great representation of Periwinkle. Right. And I want to make sure everyone's a great representation of what we are and what we do. So yes, it was very different at first to try to figure out how to do that because I'm a very lenient person. I'm the person that's like, I'll give you multiple chances. It's fine. But I needed to like be strict on these are what the rules that we follow. This is what we do. That was hard for me at first. But now I am a lot better at it now.
Well, you're a very giving person and it's in me as well. And when it comes, if you go back in time for me, I gave so much into people. I gave so much money, so much time, so much effort. And there's a lot of people that will take advantage of that. And then at the end of the day, you've got something that is, you feel spent. You feel like you've just absolutely given everything. And you've gotten very little return on it. So I think in business, there's certain philosophies we start to adopt over time. Tell me some of the philosophies that may have changed from day one to now. I know that's a deep question.
That's a deep question.
It might take some thought, and that's okay.
So we had talked before, and a lot of what you said, I'm a very stubborn person. A very stubborn person. My husband has to grab me and just kind of be like, listen to people when they're telling you something. But like some of the things you had said, I was like, I'm fine. I got this. Like, I know what I'm doing is going to work. And my dad always said, if you're going to walk through a minefield, follow someone. He's right.
Very good.
Yeah. So if you want to know business, follow someone who does business. If you want to know the aesthetics industry, follow someone who does aesthetics. Walk behind someone who has already stepped on all the bombs so you know where not to step. And so my main thing was to where I am now. So the way I'm running my business now is I'm working on the business rather than in the business as much, because that was something you told me. And it took me so long. It's not that I didn't want to do that, obviously. It took me a long time to figure out what that really meant, and what that looked like for me, because I knew I started out doing all the services. I mean, I know that I'm good at what I do. And I also have a hard time being like, well, if I know how to do it, then I'll just keep doing it. Like, it's hard for me to let someone else do it. So being able to kind of step back, be more hands-off on that side of things, because for years that's all I did, and being more on the business side of things, that's been a huge change in my business.
Good.
Thank you.
Awesome.
But like, once I figured out what that meant for me, that was probably the biggest thing, the biggest change, the biggest huge mind shift or philosophy just in the industry at all, was how to build my business for them, because I'm doing it for my employees. Like, I love them and I want them to be successful too, and I want the business to be successful, but I know the business isn't successful unless they're successful. And so that's just, whenever I got myself to think of it, I'm helping them more and the business more by me working on the business instead of in the business. That was huge for me.
Good. Well, one thing, and that's not uncommon, because when we interview business owners, there's a constant theme that you start to see. And some of the things that when those guys have arrived, they've actually made that transition from player coach to more of coach. And when they get to the coach point now, it's like, why didn't I do this earlier?
I know.
It's
I
easy.
wish I would have done that so much earlier.
Take a deep breath, and just like, because you could probably have 3 people training at once over one person if they're okay with that. Of course, it seems a little
their eyes are closed.
So but the point is those people in growth and training those people up in the way they should go, the way your culture and your excellence level, you can correct things too as they've seen it, and now you're watching them, and that gives you more power and time to work on your business, help bring in more people, things like that, right?
Yeah.
So what is you just mentioned before we rolled here, you mentioned that you just hired a social media coordinator, and this is awesome because I don't have one necessarily. We have a lot of guys that help out here and there, but as far as an actual job position, I know I should probably slap for that, but my in this day and age. So this is now, how long have you had a social media coordinator?
I believe it was November. It was either October or November, somewhere in there. She honestly reached out to me for lashes, and I knew she was a social media person. And she was just like, I just want my lashes done. And then I started asking her questions while she was doing the appointment, and I was just like, man, I really do need her. Because we had talked about social media previously, and I don't know social media algorithms. I can't keep up with algorithms. I didn't have time to keep up with algorithms. I was all day, 12-hour days working on clients.
It doesn't matter if you're good at it or not. It has everything to do with the time you have.
Yes. And I didn't know there were apps that can schedule out. Like, I can sit down one day a week and just schedule out all my content for the week. I didn't know that. I thought I knew nothing about social media. I thought I knew a lot about social media. I knew nothing. So hiring her has been so helpful because she follows all the algorithms. She watches everything. She watches how many views things get. Gives me the content ideas that I need, because I don't have the time to sit down and just scroll through social media for hours and be like, oh, I want to make a video like this. She does that for me. Good. So that's very nice.
Okay, so the golden question would be, since that's happened, it's only been 2-3 months now, but has that actually increased people through the door?
Yes. Also goes in waves. So I feel like that's what we were kind of talking about it before we started here. It depends on the week. Sometimes, like, algorithms change with social media all the time. So halfway through the week, I can be doing the right thing, and then the next day, that type of content won't get views. So then, like, the numbers go down. So we've seen a lot more. Social media is not the only way to market. It's easy to try to go all, especially people in my generation, to go all in on social media and be like, that's the way to market. It's not the only way to market. It's easy to get distracted with that and think you're working so hard on your business when you're doing social media. But we see a lot more followers, a lot more people coming in that way, and it's just still trying to convert them into customers. We get some people through those posts. We've gotten a lot more facial clients. Our facial clientele has gone up bigger. Lashes has kind of stayed the same, but lashes has always consistently been going up because people, like, once they get lashes, they want lashes. So
And
yes,
I never want those to go away.
yes, exactly.
Something about women, I don't know.
I know
It is
they
what
just
it is.
love how lashes look. It's something about waking up and not having to do anything with your
Yeah, I
day.
think
You're
that's
just ready to
probably what
go.
it is. It's
It's
easy.
awesome. It's so
Easy
nice.
button, right?
It is. But yes, we've seen the numbers be higher. I feel like they could still be higher, but also I know that's on me because there's different packages with any social media manager. So you choose how much you want them to do. I chose a smaller package because I was just starting out with a social media manager. I know if I chose a bigger package, the clientele would be most likely higher. Again, social media is always going in waves. So I don't know for sure, but I honestly have spent more time marketing. That's why I was like hounding myself for that, spending more time marketing on social media than other ways of marketing.
Okay.
But also I'm now to the point where I was working 6 days a week, then I went down to 5, like on clients. I still work all the time, but working on clients, only taking clients working in the business that many days. I'm down to 2 now, to where I can
good
actually
job.
spend the other days, yes, helping my girls get clients, going out and marketing. And I've just within the past like 2 weeks gotten down to that. So I'm trying to find and look into more ways that I can market other than social media to bring in the clientele.
Gotcha. So what's your turnover experience? Because you've had those people that you, like I said, you've dumped your time, your effort, and all that kind of stuff. Tell me a little bit about the emotional side of that. And the reason I ask that is because this is what people are going to see when they're in business.
Yeah.
They're going to see the emotional side.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get your hopes up and something around this key person you've hired. It's like, finally I found somebody, and then they didn't work out somehow.
Spend hours
So, yeah,
and
tell me a little
hours
bit about
training
that roller
them.
coaster.
It is a big roller coaster. So I've had a few people that I've been there countless hours all throughout. Like, I feel like I was there 9 a.m. to midnight many days, just training them certain hours throughout the day, trying to get them clientele, working with them, answering questions, one-on-one training them to where I wasn't taking clients during that time. And I spend all those hours training this person, and just to be let down for them to leave. And it's like, in all of them, I can see it coming right before it happens, but I try, and being me, I want to give them another chance. I just want to keep putting in the hours. I'm like, what if I can fix it? What if I can make it better? Once you said this to me, once you realize they're not going to work, if they're not a good fit, let them go then, because you already know. You can't change it. And so like with the last person, honestly, like I was able to implement something like that. And it wasn't like a really bad situation. It's like we found something better for her. But it is emotionally exhausting, because you go home, and I have a husband. I want to go home and spend all this time with him.
Disconnect.
Yes, I want to disconnect, but I can't, because it's hard sometimes, even just laying there at night, and it's like they don't have clients. They don't have the people. Like, I need to get them the people. And you feel the way other than just for your client. It's one thing to feel it for building your own clientele and being like, well, if I don't get the clients, I don't have the money. It's another thing when that's someone else's livelihood. Like, they have to pay rent. They have to pay bills with that money.
And you take on that responsibility.
And you do.
Yeah.
You do. And it's emotionally exhausting.
It is,
and it's,
sure.
you just have to, I feel like I have to compartmentalize sometimes. Like, when I get home, it's just like, okay, I need to spend time with my husband. I need to not worry about work. Like, it's hard when I'm trying to like listen to an audiobook. Sometimes my brain's just like thinking of all the things I need to be doing other than that. And I'm like, Kylie, listen to this book. It is emotionally a roller coaster, a big roller coaster, but it's worth it, because then you find the right people, and they're part of the family, and they're part of the team, and I know that anyone has a chance at any point to leave. I'm well aware of that. But obviously you don't want them to. Yeah. So that's always hard. Right. But I'm aware that it could happen at any point. And I know I'm very lucky to have a good relationship with my previous employer. Like, I texted her asking her if I was paying her butt. And I feel like she's helped me walk through a lot of that, because she employs, I think, 50 plus women now. Yeah. Women. So, okay.
Yes. You opened that can. I'm going to let you continue.
That's fine.
To go into that.
Women are emotionally exhausting already. We're a lot.
I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm married,
yes,
and I'd like to stay that way.
I can say it for you.
Okay.
It's fine. It's true, though.
Yeah. So that is a little different, because you really do have your entire clientele, for the most part. I mean, you do have probably men that come in from time to time, facials, things like that. But I think it's almost uncomfortable for a man to be working on a woman. It's way more comfortable for a woman to work on a woman in your industry. It's not something that you can change. It's a almost a constant in your business, and that's what's one of your workarounds. You have to work around that particular thing. But there's so many very good, stable people that are very good, but at the same time, there's some that you have to weed out, like we talked about earlier. So have you gotten better since day one of hiring to now? I know I talked on the fact that you could kind of see it coming a little bit more, but what are the attributes? What is your culture that you have? What are some of the first questions you ask? What are your qualifying questions to somebody who's going to come and work for you and uphold your level of excellence? Because that's what you have. You know, I've been in your business, I've seen it, and your level of excellence and what you expect out of them is very, very high, and that's awesome. And most people, they don't have that, and that's very unique, because excellence, although hard, will definitely pay off in the end. So, I guess my question is, what are your qualifying questions to get through somebody who operates in excellence?
Yeah. I honestly, because we had talked about interviews before, it's a lot of, I just want to know where their heart is and what made them want to do what they're doing. What's their 5-year plan with it? Like, where do they want to go with this? A lot of it, it's hard because I feel like people can just sit there and lie to you in an interview. So it doesn't matter really what you ask them. They can just lie about it. Honestly, it's more, this sounds weird. It's more what I get from just not what they're saying, not the answers they're giving, because anyone can lie about an answer. But their attitude, their posture, if they can look me in the eyes, if they had a firm handshake, like I'm huge on that. I had one girl, I was actually talking about this a few days ago. This has to do with hiring people, but she walked in to my business one day and just walked in and was like, "Hi, my name is," and shook my hand, was dressed professionally, had her resume in hand. I knew immediately I was going to hire her, but I still did an interview with her. But I knew just based on that interaction, she was someone who was serious about what this was. I just wanted to get to know her, obviously, before I hired her.
Based on
you
knew you're going to hire her, but based on what?
Based on her passion for the industry, based on if she's someone who aligned with, I would say, our beliefs, but like had the same heart for us and helping people from the inside out, just aligned with everything that we wanted to be and wanted to do, with like health tying into beauty, truly caring about the client rather than just making money for a service. Yes, you need to make money, you need to make a living, but if you don't care about the client and you're not actually helping the client, you're going to lose that client. You need to care about their needs, what they're coming in for. If they give you a budget, you need to honor their budget. Just honoring, loving, and respecting our clientele was huge to me, and if I can see that they're going to do that, I'm more likely to hire them. I've had people that I asked all the right questions, I thought, and they answered them, sounded great in an interview. And then there was just certain things, like when I asked them to do something, they wouldn't do it. Or if I asked them, they wouldn't respond to me for a few days, like just certain things like that. And they're amazing people. They just weren't serious about the industry. And those were red flags to me. But I feel like there's not a specific question that I ask people. I kind of go with the conversation with them, and I want to get to know them for them, but that's also just how I kind of am.
So what can you tell about a person by their handshake?
If they have, well, most people should have in school learned how to give a good handshake. I feel like if you were taught right in the school, you should learn how to give a good handshake. I feel like if you have a firm handshake, you are definitely going to be more serious about what you're doing. You really want a job, you're going to be more serious about it. You're going to probably dress more professional, or if you come in dressed professional, I assume you're going to be a professional person. Honestly, if someone shakes my hand and it's just limp and I'm just like,
the dead fish
handshake. Yes, I didn't know how to put it. Yes, the dead fish handshake. I'm like, you're not willing to stand up. Like, you can't tell someone directly what they need for their skin. You're going to shy away from a hard conversation with clients, because not that you have to have hard conversations with them, but if someone's like, I'm going to come in and I don't want to do anything for my skin, but I just want to get a facial and I want my skin to be better. Well, you're not going to tell them that's not going to work, and then they're going to be upset with you that you didn't tell them. Like, I want someone who can be honest and direct with someone, and I feel like you can tell that in a handshake if they're going to be serious about what they're doing and if they're going to be able to stand up and say something seriously. I don't like the dead fish handshake.
I don't either.
If you shake my
And
hand
the
like
reason
that.
I hammer on that because a lot of people do, and it's amazing to me. I've seen people come out of Ivy League colleges and try to come work for me, and it's like when they come in and I'm shaking their hand, and it feels like I'm it's a dead fish handshake, and I'm just like, you lost me. I'm glazing over from
you
that
like
point on.
can't you see it in their eyes, you can tell it in their handshake.
Yeah.
You can just see it.
It's
how serious
confidence,
someone
lack
is.
of. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's important to assert yourself as a business owner to other people also, because if you're doing business with other people in town, or if you're doing other retail or whatever, you might have people that come in and I think you probably do. And I'm trying to remember, you have wholesalers that come in and sell you your goods, I think, that you sell in your shop, right? So those people, if they come in and have a dead fish handshake, it's almost like, yes, you don't seem like that solid kind of person I want to do business with.
Yeah.
So it speaks volumes to me, and most people don't understand the importance of it. They don't ever get past it. And someone who is a business owner, someone who has an entrepreneurial spirit, they're driven. They're very get on my way, I'll get it done, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Stubborn in a good way.
yeah, in a good way, right? We don't want to, exactly. So the idea is if someone is listening and you need practice on a handshake, you know who you are. If you've never really paid attention to your handshake, or you've shaken other people's hands, or maybe you don't feel like you want to be dominating or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not about dominance. It's about
It's not like you're grabbing both hands.
right. Yeah, bringing in a hug
Yeah.
first time. No, and I'm a hugger, but at the end of the day, that's not professional.
Yeah.
But the handshake, I like a lot of people are shying away from giving a nice firm handshake. Women, especially, they feel like almost like it's a like an English.
They just like
English
put their
ladies
little
handshake.
hand, and I'm like, I'm not gonna hold your hand like that. You immediately lost me.
That's awesome. So the end result is you give the impression immediately to be taken seriously.
Yes.
Now it doesn't need to be bone crushing. I had that happen too.
You break my hand,
Now
you're not
that's
also not gonna
dominance.
get hired.
Yeah, that's somebody that's just trying to dominate you. That's just ridiculous. But a firm handshake, I think, is important. So it's good. Glad you brought that up. So, okay. Tell me your 5-year outlook since the last time we talked to now. I want to know.
Like you were gonna ask me this.
I know you knew I was going to ask this. I want to know, where is Kylie's head from now to 5 years from now?
Man, that's hard. It was a hard question then. It's still a hard question. Because there's so many things that I looked at the business. If I was thinking of myself 5 years ago, thinking about myself now, I would have never imagined myself where I am now. At least exactly. I'm a detail person. I want to know like exactly where I would be, what it would be doing, what exactly I would be doing. I would have seen myself doing booth rent forever, 5 years ago. But now, where I am now, what I am stepping towards every day, is having a very successful business, 6-figure business in aesthetics, with me fully hands off, other than doing just a few friends and family service-wise. Hands on the business, but hands off the clientele.
Sure.
And being able to run a business with a whole bunch of girls and helping them be very successful. I know it sounds crazy sometimes, but I'm huge on, I want them to be successful. Like it's not about me. And some business owners will be like, no, it's about you. No, it's not. It's not about me. It's about how I can help them, and help them be successful, because I'm not going to be successful unless they're successful. I want them to be successful. And the more I help them do that, it's going to help me. And so I just want to have it completely packed out within 5 years or more. I actually want to be into a bigger building, expanding. Something my husband and I have talked about in the future is, I don't know if that's 5 years. I can't even think about how old I'll be in 5 years. But around that time, like possibly having a location and still running Periwinkle as employees. But then having a business that is booth rent, because I honestly liked booth rent. You just kind of max out with what you can make with booth rent and how far you can go. But having a location to where like a salon suites kind of thing. I don't know if you've heard of those,
Mm-hmm.
but you just rent out all the space is a huge one. Like there's multiple in the area, but it's all under one name, one studio or whatever. And then everyone in there has their own business. So having like a booth rent option to where if people want to start out as this, they can, and then they can move to booth rent. But it would be a different location and just keep helping people grow and learn in the industry in the employee side of it too.
Very good. So you talked about your husband having he's the math guy. He's the numbers guy. What would you say his feelings are towards growth and where you started and where you are now? And how important is, I guess I'm going to ask a hard question.
Go on.
And
I'm ready.
Same lines, but what causes frictions more than anything else between you two? Because you guys run of a lot of it. You know, he's the numbers guy. You're the visionary. You get it done. But at the end of the day, he's got some pullback. You got some pullback or pushback one way or another. And tell me a little bit about that. And because that's different than at home, isn't it?
Yeah. So the biggest thing there is we have this conversation very often of the numbers should be higher than they are right now already. He every day has to remind me that, and it's good. It's what you told me. It's every day that he asks me every single day, is this working in the business or on the business?
I'm so sorry. Now it's been a thorn to your side, hasn't it?
No, it's good. It's good. It's good because it's
it.
what got me down to 2 days now with clients.
Yeah.
But he has to remind me every day because I'm, like I said before, I want to help my girls so much, and I will focus on things that aren't money-making productivity. Like that's not what I'm doing. I'm just like being so selfless with it. Like the other day I wrote a check and I was like, Joel, this is how much they made. And he was like, you do realize that's more than we made, right? And I was like, yeah, that's a good thing. He was like, no, that's not a good thing. Like there's just things like that where he sees the numbers side, which thankfully, because we wouldn't be here without him, because the business would have already gone down. Because I just am like, woo, this is awesome. But he sees the number side. I do have those big visions. I'm like, I want to do this. I want to do this next. And he has to like certain certifications I want to get. He's like, well, if you're not doing that service, do you need that certification? And I'm like, no. And he was like, is that going to make you more money? And I was like, no.
Is it going to cause you to work in your business? Or
And he's like, that's going to give you another day of clientele. And he's like, what are we going to do whenever we have kids? Like he reminds me of all the things. So like the biggest thing is him being like, the numbers could be here. Like he went down and broke down, if we want to make this much in a year, how much do we need to make per hour, per day? How many like clients do we need to get in at what price? He sees all of those way more than I do. I just get excited and just start running in a direction, and he has to slow me down sometimes because he does have a full-time job. And so sometimes I'm just running the business and he doesn't know what I'm doing. He just trusts me to do it, thankfully. But he'll like come in and be like, how much did we spend on this month? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And he's like, okay, let's go look at the numbers. And then he'll make me all these spreadsheets and they look all pretty. And then he's like, did you use the spreadsheet? And I'm like, no,
didn't use spreadsheets.
No. And so he has to remind me every day to use my spreadsheets.
That's fun.
And if I'm working on or in the business.
Yeah.
But honestly, everything he says, and I'm not just saying this because it's recorded, everything he says is true. Everything he says is true about like what I need to do. Yeah. He didn't grow up around traditional business. And so it's hard for him already. He's very much like, he likes to see a consistent paycheck and know that money's coming in, which is good because I am I didn't have another job while I was running the business. So it's not like it was just all his income. We were pouring into the business, into a house and to living. And so him being like, we need to make this back. Like we just, I think 3 weeks ago, paid off the business.
Fantastic.
And I was like, and he was like, okay, we could have done that before this time. Yeah. And he was like, but at least we're here. Like, let's keep going from there. Let's do better this year. Let's do better this month. So thankfully he sees all those because I'm sure we could have done it way sooner. I got excited and just started running a direction, and we had talked about that.
And it's hard not to.
It's hard not to because I get so excited.
I know. And when you have a passion for something, that's when almost our passion kind of takes over, and it's like, I got to stop and think.
Yeah.
Got to stop and pray. Got to stop and think. Got to stop and just take a tick here.
Yeah.
Just
just
breathe.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and it's hard for a business owner who's driven.
It
is, and you're not alone, and everybody watching is not alone. You know, we have those emotional things, and if we can get our emotions in check, I think it's going to be it pays dividends.
Yes, it does.
What do you feel like? And I'll close with this, but what do you feel like from the standpoint of have you guys grown closer or farther apart as business has gone on? Do you think?
That also goes in waves. I would say closer. We're both very open, honest people.
Good.
In the middle of the pandemic, farther apart. Like when I first opened. I think we had talked about this. We had talked about it, but he was like in the depth of it with work. There was a few like deaths in the family. Like it was a really hard time, and I'm just like, sign papers, woo. And so, and we knew, obviously he knew what I was signing. We had talked about it, but I didn't. Goodness, if I could go back and change that. If I would have had a business plan in the first place, would have been way better. Would have had less friction, less conversations about what I should have done to begin, because I got excited. I signed some papers and I was like, I have this idea in my head and I know what it's going to look like and we'll just do it. And he's like, well, what steps are we going to take? And I was like, well, I don't know. He was like, do you have a business plan? No. Do you have anything written down? No. I don't know. And just because you're a good esthetician doesn't mean you're a good business owner.
That's true.
And I was like, I'm a really good esthetician. I can do this. That's fine. Like I didn't have problem with confidence in that area. But I just thought, because my parents ran a business, I could do it. I didn't realize what all went into it. So during the pandemic, I would say it caused a lot of friction. There were a lot of tears on my side of things. Not that he was like upset with me, but it was that I was beating myself up because I knew I just put us in a big financial hole, basically.
Yeah.
And I have to figure it out. And I knew that he was too busy to be able to do it, because I was, in my mind, I was like, we'll do this together. And he was like, I still have a full-time job. So yes, in the middle of the pandemic, further apart, but we've over time grown closer because of it, because there's a lot of things you have to walk through with that. And as long as you don't let it tear you apart, it doesn't.
Right.
It makes you get closer. So
Yeah, you're still building a financial house. And I think a lot of times people jump into entrepreneurship and they don't remember that. They don't remember that you're married and you have to live with each other and you have to agree, hopefully, and have peace in the home. And peace in the business, and there's not always peace, and there's not always, and you've got to be able to deal with that. So it's kind of like walking through the fire. You guys have got a little bit of smolting done and out of the way, and that's really when a business really starts to realize itself and starts to grow, because then you're working as a team. Then it's like, okay, we're both like-minded. We're not fighting as much about the little things and the big decisions we're bringing to the table and taking a minute. And once you get those emotions under wraps, it helps.
And getting married young. And doing that young.
I know, you guys got married young.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, though. I think that's awesome. Last thing, I'm going to ask one last question, and I'm going to let you go, because I know you need to get back to it. Regrets. If there was one thing that you could do over in your business, outside of making a business plan and opening in a pandemic.
You know, all the major things
all
other than
those
those.
Things we've talked about. Is there a regret that you would warn people about? Obviously, you said something about being more expensive. That's very good. People need to know it's going to be more expensive.
They didn't realize how much work you have to put into it.
It's kind of like when you're building a house. It's like, okay, the builder tells you he's going to make you a $200,000 house. And just go ahead and add 30% to that, because that's basically what's going to end up being. Right?
Depending on how bougie you are, maybe more.
Right, maybe more, yeah. So what is the regret that if you had to do over, you'd do it again? You would redo it?
Yeah, it's hard because I get asked this question a lot. And it is a regret, but it's not at the same time. So if it were me going back and redoing it, I would start with clientele, because where I worked before, I honored the fact that I had signed a no compete, not going to take any clients with me when I leave. I honored that because I was like, you reap what you sow. I'm not going to start this with stealing a whole bunch of clientele from the business that I previously worked. Again, I love them. They're amazing. They help a lot of people. But I had no one. I started with no one, and I didn't have extra money. I didn't have a solid income to start that with, because it is expensive. And I wish I would have maybe started booth rent first. started booth renting somewhere in my industry specifically, just to where I could build up clientele, have more people, start marketing sooner. Because I didn't, but
So not jumping into the deep end. 'Cause
yes.
You jumped
Oh, I
directly into the
did.
deep end.
I was just like, whoa, let's go. But at the same time, I don't regret it because I knew, I mean, it has not happened many times in my life, but I walked into that business and I knew that was my business. And that's not common for me. I tend to like, as much as I jump into the deep end, I also overthink things.
Yeah.
But I didn't. Like, I walked in and I knew immediately that was it. And I also knew I had to sign a lease very soon, otherwise it wasn't mine. But I had so much peace walking into it. So I regret it, but I don't. If anything, maybe starting sooner, leaving where I was before, just to like build up clientele before I had it.
Putting off being self-employed.
Yes.
Interesting.
And well, booth rent is self-employed.
Yeah.
But I wish I would have built up a clientele before I started.
Right.
So that I would have had a base to start with, instead of every day having to stress about if I was going to have any clients, if I was going to make any money, still having to pay all of the bills, all of it. But doing that, but I mean, it's one of those things where I regret, but I don't regret. But if I were to advise someone else, I would advise them to go do that first.
Right. Because you learned a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You just learned the hard way a little bit.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's fine.
Well, Kylie, thank you so much. This is awesome. I love to see business owners that are relatively new in business, not just established and successful, because nowadays, anytime you open a business, it's different than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
And there's different things and different social media, and people view things differently, and different services happen at different times, and a lot of things seasonally can be a problem, and all those things. It's good to hear from someone who's fresh in business and doing well, breaking even, but it took some time, didn't it? You know, it's not something that's overnight. Everybody's saying, I'm going to be self-employed and I'm going to work for myself so I can have
so
my
much
own
money.
hours, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, the 24/7 is what you're traded for the 9 to 5.
Yes, it is.
So all those things are just something people don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. And thank you for coming in and sharing, being transparent and honest, and it's so refreshing and neat to see someone actually doing something new and actually just taking the chances, especially a young person like yourself. I get a lot of old guys in here, you know, like me. But
You're gonna
it's
walk through
good
the minefield and follow someone. We're just following you guys.
Right. Yeah, we just went through the minefield first, right?
Yeah,
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
of course. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.